Hello everyone, it's Shannon here. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I am joining a YouTube hop celebrating Honeybee Stamps vintage holiday release, and I have a fun rainbow card for you today. This is a slimline rainbow card featuring the new layering vintage ornament stencils. I have them right here. It's a 2-pack of stencils, and I did take a permanent marker, a fine tip one, and just circled or kind of looped the ornament pieces or the ornament sections that go together. I went on Honeybee's website and kind of saw their guide there and just then circled them on my stencil just to make it a little bit easier. There are some leftover pieces. There's toppers and little hooks, as well as like additional ornaments and decorative parts of the ornaments. The set is meant to be mixed and matched, but for just making it easier for me, I did go ahead and kind of circle the sections that kind of go together or work best together. And again, I used a guide found on Honeybee's website. When you click on the product for the image for the layering vintage ornament stencils, you'll find it there. So I'm starting with a slimline card base. This is actually 7 by 8.5 and then scored at 3.5 to create my card base. I'm going to use a piece of tape to kind of hold the card base shut, and I also went ahead and traced out the ornaments onto some scrap white cardstock, cut them out, and now I am just going to figure out where I want them to go on my card front. This is going to make it a lot easier for positioning, so I get these in just the right spot. So I'm starting with the center, and this happens to be kind of a bell-shaped ornament, starting with the largest opening for it, and I'm going to ink blend this in a trio of yellow distress ink, starting with Squeeze Lemonade for kind of the base. So I'm going to start with my lightest color first, and then work my way through my colors till I get to my darkest color. That way I get a contrast for my different layers. So this is just my lightest color, and I'm just going to quickly ink blend the base. I am using a small ink blending brush. This just makes it a whole lot easier because I don't have to tape off. I don't have to worry about over blending and blending into the other open areas of the stencil. I can kind of more precisely ink blend and not have to worry about ink blending where I don't want to. So I just ink blend one section there in Mustard Seed, and now moving on to the last section here in Fossilized Amber, so my darkest shade. Now I'm going to ink blend the little bell bottom portion of the stencil with Mustard Seed as well. Now we're going to move on to the top. So there's a bunch of different toppers you can choose from. You just pick whichever one you want. They basically all work with these ornaments. I picked one here that I liked the best. I'm going to ink blend this in Fossilized Amber as well. And then for the little hook part or the little loop, I'm going to also pick one and then ink blend that in Fossilized Amber. Now we're going to move on to our other ornaments. I did place my paper cutouts down again just to help me position these two. I'm going to start with this one to the left of my yellow ornament. This one's going to be a red combo, starting with Abandoned Coral, so my lightest color here. Now this ornament actually has like 4 layers, and I only have 3 colors picked out. So I did my base with Abandoned Coral. Now for this next section, I'm going to use Abandoned Coral again, but I'm just going to ink blend a little bit more heavy-handedly to get a little bit of that contrast. Now for this band around the ornament, I'm going to move on to Festive Berries Distress ink, and then for the little detailed like kind of border, I will move on to my last color. I am doing the little bottom here also in Festive Berries, and now I'm onto that well, I guess that detail, that little printed banner part of the banner, which I did in Aged Mahogany. Now we're moving on to the last ornament here on the left side. This one's going to be a pink combo of colors, starting with Spun Sugar, again my lightest color for the base. Quickly ink blend that, and again I'm using those little ink blending brushes because then I don't have to do as much masking. It really does help. You can totally use though blending tools if you have those, or even bigger blending brushes, but you'll probably have to do a lot more masking. Just did the top and bottom portion of that ornament in Kitsch Flamingo. Now I'm ink blending this detail part with picked raspberry, and then I'll ink blend the little bottom of the ornament also in picked raspberry. Now we're moving on to the right side of our ornaments. Again, I have my paper cutouts down to help me get the spacing right and these in the right position for my stencil. So now that I have my stencil in place, I'm going to ink blend this with a trio of greens, starting with Twisted Citron for the base. I think this little ornament might actually be my personal favorite. Then there's this circle part. I'm moving on to Mowed Lawn for that. And then there's a detail, kind of like a burst or a flower in the center, which I am ink blending in Pine Needles, my darkest shade. So now that I finished that, I'm moving on to my last ornament, which is in blues, starting with Tumbled Glass. And I am ink blending off camera the toppers and little hook for all of these ornaments off camera. It's just a repetitive process, so I didn't film that or didn't include that. So the base was Tumbled Glass. Now for the middle section, I'm moving on to Peacock Feathers. And then for my final, my darkest, I'm moving on to Mermaid Lagoon and being pretty heavy-handed here with this color, so I get good contrast between that Peacock Feathers and that Mermaid Lagoon. And that will actually complete that ornament when, again, I did the topper off camera. Now I'm going to move on to this kind of this series of little circle openings that will kind of look like string that the ornaments are hanging from. Just going to place it, position it above the toppers of all these ornaments, and then ink blend it in Fossilized Amber as well. The same color I used for all the toppers, the little hooks, and now for the string. I guess it kind of almost looks like a chain, but it's really pretty detail. Now we're going to move on to the sentiment. I have Bitty Buzzwords Holidays set here, the die set, and I went ahead and die cut 3 Christmases out of, well, 2 out of white cardstock and 1 out of kind of a matte gold. I'm stacking the 2 Christmases one on top of the other to create some dimension. Then I went ahead and die cut also a shadow layer out of vellum, and now I'm going to add some adhesive to those stacked Christmases, kind of tap off or press the sentiment, or press the words, the stacked sentiment to a scrap of cardstock and then adhere it to the vellum layer. That kind of removes that excess glue. Then I'll add my glue to the backside of my gold Christmas, remove some of that excess adhesive by just placing on a piece of scrap paper and then placing it right on top of that vellum. So I have this really beautiful stacked sentiment. And of course I'll have to add that little tittle for the eye. And now we're done with our word portion, our word die cut portion of our sentiment. Now moving on to a sub sentiment. I kind of created my own here. I used the Wishing You A stamp and I separated the bottom half with a pair of scissors. So I just cut it. I'm not so worried about cutting my stamps. You could mask it if you are concerned, so you don't have to cut your stamps, but they're really easy to piece back together on your Misty. Then I added Mary and stamped it in Versamark ink, poured on some gold embossing powder, and now I'll heat set with my heat tool. So I kind of created my own little sentiment here, but it really fits nicely, I think, with our beautiful scripty Christmas die cut. So now I'll just add some adhesive to the back side of my die cut, and then I'll just adhere it right underneath that sub sentiment, and we will be done with our card. And I'll hold this card up to the camera so you can get a good look at all the details in this card. I love these ornaments. They're so beautiful, and it was really fun to be able to create all those layers or all those different sections in different colors. I can't wait to play with it some more, maybe use some glitter paste or even some other kinds of like metallic paste with this set to create a really pretty kind of focal point for your card. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If any questions about the products I use, please check out the links below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.